Så kanske man ska göra också. Igen. Man kanske ska fixa till kameran, tror jag. Det är hyfsat bra. Jag ska sitta lite högre upp bara. Ja, typ så här. Jag orkar inte sitta så. Ja, jag har fixat lite kamera här. Lite schysstare design. Vi får se om det blir bättre. Lite svårt att prata in i kameran så här bara direkt. Jag är inte van vid det riktigt. Men det kommer väl det också. Jag fick se en video till. Jag tänkte reagera på. Lite snabbt hoppas jag. Spola igenom de grejer som inte är bra. Det har att göra med spel som kommer komma 2022 och 2023. Som jag ska försöka och spela helt enkelt. Köpa, ladda ner och spela. Hoppas det är något spel ni också kommer gilla. Och spela med mig eller titta på. Så jag tänkte vi drar igång direkt. En ganska lång video. Så jag hoppas att det går att spola framåt lite. Hoppas vi hittar roliga spel som kommer komma. Ni får gärna reagera tillsammans med mig. Där klickar jag så. Ja, så fint. Vi kör igång direkt. Hämta en kaffe eller dricka eller någonting så kör vi igenom det här då.
All right, now let's get started. Jumping into nature, we begin with Among Trees by FJRD Interactive. This is, at first glance, a beautiful looking survival game that's in early access on the Epic Games Store. This is a small, vibrant survival sandbox set in a colorful wilderness world teeming with life. You'll have your little wood cabin located in the heart of a lush forest, and you'll be able to expand your cabin by building new rooms and unlocking additional stuff, including food cooking, plant growing, and tool crafting. As you explore this colorful, breathing world, from dense forest to dark caves, you have to stay safe as you explore, scavenging for food, catching fish, chopping down trees, and staying stealthy so you can avoid the wild, deadly beasts that roam the forests. And whatever else the night brings. Now, this is a sort of expected survival game in nature where a lot of people are into this. And there's a number of these looks. It see the full success, but that's where it is. So that's where you can find Among Trees. Going a bit more cartoony, we have Pal World by Pocket Pair. Now this is a
jag ska bara göra så här
left into with that.
Ska bara ta en print screen på den där. Så.
Store, but that's World by Pocket Pair. Now this is a brand new multiplayer open world survival crafting game where you can befriend and collect mysterious creatures called Pal in this vast world.
Okay.
Kind of like Pokemon, but it gets a little bit interesting here. Make your pals fight, build, farm, and work in factories and use them as shields against enemies. And wait, this footage is starting to look a little bit weird, but I mean, you kind of get the idea. It's sort of like multiplayer survival Pokemon with guns and abuse. Anyway,
okay.
I think you get the idea for what this is. You're going to be riding and exploring this world, building, making a life and farming. But then there's also factory and automation, dungeon exploration, breeding and heredity, poaching and crime, all in this multiplayer game. So it's sort of like a satirical, maybe more realistic. How are liking this one. Craftopia is a new multiplayer survival action game made in Japan, and it combines all the survival features such as hunting, farming, hack and slash combat, building, and automation. Farming will have 20 plus crops available for you to grow. The industrialization and automation is, like the last game, similarly kind of abusive, I guess you could say. There is breeding, exploring dungeons, fishing, and vehicles, along with a skill tree, character creation, and multiplayer. So this does seem similar to Pal World, but without the really loving this.
Ni kanske gillar det, men jag gillar inte det. Det väcker för mycket.
Guldfågelns nya kyckling Solbacka. Den växer långsammare.
Skit jag för att vara klar för att vara kvar nu. Så.
Up we've got Ancora Lost Days by Chibig. Discover Ancora and explore freely around this mysterious planet full of resources but also dangers. Craft different tools, build structures, and unveil every corner of this wild planet, terraforming the landscape in this calm and self-described as cute as heck survival game. Now this one does have more of an indie look to it, as it's got these smaller sort of tiled worlds, and it's kind of a difference. It's small. You have 2022 release date. And then we have Nemoid by Nudge Nudge Games. You've crash landed on Earth in 2702. Craft, dig, and fight through a vast and colorful post-apocalyptic world full of wonder, generated cities, dungeons, aliens, mechs, and an underworld. You could also find love or beat the ultimate underlord. Now this is
det är jättekonstigt. Det var jättelång video också.
2022, but we'll see how that goes. So you'll be able to play Nemoid survival sandbox soon enough. Going a bit colder, it's Outpost Glacier by Doomlord Interactive. Outpost Glacier is an open world survival crafting game where you maintain a small outpost in the middle of a frozen wasteland. Scavenge, craft, build, hunt, and do whatever it takes to survive the cold. Explore the world and find the many secrets and locations scattered around, and maybe you'll be able to have a bit of fun in the snow. Now, this is still in early alpha, and there's probably bugs and all of that, but you can check out the game already for free, as it's on itch.io. And it looks like you're going to be building up a base and surviving natural disasters and just the elements, along with unexpectedly large and dangerous wildlife. So they're a deep to something a little bit more historically inspired with Going Medieval by Foxy Voxel. Now, Going Medieval is a game that I played a little bit of, and it's sort of like a 3D rim world in a medieval setting, but with tiered construction and terrain, so it goes up and down. So this one has a colony base building sort of thing, and you'll be staking your claim in what it is. It's a Wizard with a Gun by Galvanic Games. Wizard with a Gun at first glance sort of looks like Don't Starve, but you're wizards with guns. So that's pretty much what you can expect from this game. Calling itself an online cooperative sandbox survival game set in a magical wilderness wrought with dangerous creatures and arcane mysteries, you'll be embarking on a journey alone or with friends to collect, craft, and outfit your wizard however you see fit as you explore the unknown. There will be magical weapon customizations, customized so it shouldn't be too long before we get to experience this interesting take on the Don't Starve formula. Next up, we go for something that looks a bit more of a classic RPG sort of thing. It's called Frozen Flame by Dreamside Interactive. Embark on an epic fantasy adventure in this dying world of dragons. Choose a path, amass power, and gather allies to make a stand against the cursed forces and the destructive influence of the frozen flame. Decide the fate of the world through your actions in this open world survival RPG. Now, this one is more on the RPG side of the survival spectrum, which may or may not be towards your liking, as this sort of thing can come off at first glance to be kind of generic, and, you know, maybe there's less standing out. But maybe if you're looking for something a bit more familiar, then this is going to be right for you. You'll be able to play alone or and the goal sits towards the end of our as it fully enters early access, and whether it hits the ground running or if it needs more serious, we've got Return to Nangrim by Psychoforge. Return to Nangrim is a dark first-person fantasy adventure with survival and RPG elements. Grab your axe and shield and go on an epic journey that will take you and your animal companion into the ominous depths of an ancient mountain. This game is also available in VR, apparently. Now, the main features of this game is you'll be exploring epic locations to unveil their secrets, collecting, combining and crafting items, and interacting with the environment to progress. And you'll find and forge weapons to defend against the dangers that lurk in the dark as you become a master blacksmith. Your torch is essential, and you'll be choosing between hammer or axe. In this game, that's kind of dwarves versus zombies, basically, as we're seeing more of it. So looking at what we can see so far, this is more on the adventure side, as you'll be And then for one of the biggest hits of 2021, it's Valheim by Iron Gate AB. Valheim is a Viking-inspired survival game that was sort of bubbling in the background at the start of the year, and then it just exploded, basically selling 1 million copies a week, and now it's got hundreds of thousands of overwhelmingly positive reviews. It exploded. It's one of the biggest games of 2021, and it's an interesting one. A brutal exploration and survival game for 1 to 10 players set in a procedurally generated purgatory inspired by Viking culture. You battle, build, and conquer your way to a saga worthy of Odin's patronage. And one thing that really stands out for me is the visuals. It's not low poly, it's not pixel art, it's sort of a low res texture kind of style, which really is reminiscent of late 90s, early 2000s 3D, and the nostalgic heart in me really does just resonate with that. I know some people don't like it, but I know there's something about it and how it's not just low res textures. It's like it's high res in a low res style. Anyway, besides that, you like the Vikings. Moving on to something pretty different, it's Star Sand by Tunnel Vision Studio. Star Sand is a mystic survival game set among the dunes of an arcane desert. An open world full of danger, vast environments, and mysterious happenings. Explore, hunt, craft, build, and survive in a desert wasteland with a kind of a sci-fi alien aesthetic. You'll be exploring this arcane desert. You'll need to find shade, find water, and find
kanske blir bättre snart om man kommer till andra kategori. Vi verkar vara på survival bara nu.
Straight out into outer space, we have Remains by Solo Q.
Det där spelar jag inte gillar. Man bara typ... Alltså, skulle det vara verkligt...
Survival in outer space orbiting a planet. You need to explore what you've got and find a way to restore oxygen, create tools for your needs, and you have to beware of the dangers of outer space as you build your shelter in orbit and try not to die. This one is pretty much different from everything else on this list, so some of you might like it more than others. But survival in space is gonna provide some unique and different challenges. You will be able to mine things from the debris surrounding you and rebuild basically a safe space station for you to survive and live in production.
Jag försökte med att spola framåt det, men det verkar inte så intressant.
Staying up in sci-fi and kind of space, a game that we've been watching for a while now, Occupy Mars, the game, by Pyramid Games. Survive and colonize Mars in a highly technical open-world sandbox game. Build and upgrade your base, discover new regions, conduct mining operations, retrieve water, generate oxygen, grow crops, and fix broken parts. This is basically setting up a base on Mars, and we've been kind of seeing bits and pieces of this for a few years. But they did finally put out a game
demo med grafiken på alla spel, seriöst. 2022.
Survivals with The Day Before by Fantastic. This is an open world MMO survival set in a deadly post-pandemic America. topical, isn't it? Overrun by flesh-hungry, infected, and survivors killing each other for food, weapons, and cars. You wake up alone in a world you no longer remember and set out to find answers and the resources needed to survive. Now, these urban zombie survivals, there's quite a few of them, and there's a chance that this one could be good. The goal here is to survive at all costs by scouring abandoned vehicles, houses, and skyscrapers, and entering places no one else dares. You'll need to crush the infected and other players with modern-day weapons, and try to become a legend of this depressing new world. You will be able to take part in the restoration of former society in a survivor colony, and you can sell your loot and communicate with other players in, I think, safe zones. Now, from the footage shown off, it does look really good visually and gameplay-wise. It seems to have a lot going for it, though this is an upcoming zombie survival game open world MMO, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on this one because many have promised a lot in games such as these, and not all have delivered. So we'll see what the next day has in store for the day before. Continuing with zombies, it's State of Decay 3 by Undead Labs. The third main iteration of this series. Many are very hyped for this game. However, not much has been shown off. Actually, pretty much nothing's been shown off, and we don't really know many of the details of this game. You could, of course, look at the previous games to get an idea of what this game could be like, but, you know, when you're researching these games, you know pretty much nothing is known when you come across everything we know about this game. Articles pop up, so basically we know nothing of State of Decay 3. The cinematic trailer looks fancy, and it does show off a deer eating a wolf, a zombified deer.
Survivor-spel.
Otherwise it would be weird. So it seems like the infection has spread to the wildlife, so maybe more of a natural setting with fewer zombie humans and more zombie animals maybe, but really not much to be said. So if you're a fan of the previous games, State of Decay 2 still getting regular updates as far as I can tell. It's basically a watch this space for State of Decay 3. With more zombies, there is Reborn Survival by Pixel Cat Games. Promising a new survival experience. Survive in an open world with PvE and PvP, missions, bandits, a story, and more is what this game is promising. It's an open world survival game with RPG elements and zombies. You will have to survive in terms of collecting food, water, medical supplies, gear, and weapons. And there's a reputation system and towns and villages that you can reinforce. A trade system by trading with other players and running your own store, safe zones, global vaults, hostile animals, bandits and zombies, dungeon-like zones, and generally loot, gear up, and fight as you survive in this post-apocalyptic world. Now, looking relatively similar to many other open-world survivors, and also over the for maybe the most hyped game on this list, it's Sons of the Forest by End Night Games. The first game was a big hit, and we've seen a couple trailers for Sons of the Forest showing off, well, a prettier world, more dynamic building and constructing and discoverability, and it looks really good, actually, you can see from the footage. And it seems like you'll be putting the creatures around you to work as you learn to survive and build up in a hostile and isolated world. But we have to hope that it can actually live up to all of these expectations and to what it's shown off in the trailer, as it's been a couple years since the game has been revealed, and it's unclear exactly when this is gonna release. It's sort of slated for a 2021 release, but nothing has been confirmed, and I don't think we've heard much since December 2020. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is delayed into 2022, or we could get a surprise release. It might be early access, it might not. We basically don't know much. All we can wish for is that it delivers on its own promises. Sons of the Forest. Now, running away from zombies into a more shrunken perspective with Small Land by Merge Games. In Honey, I Shrunk the Kids moment, Small Land is a big adventure on a tiny scale. Multiplayer survival in a vast, hazardous world with various natural dangers. You are small, surrounded by massive creatures, or rather, you're tiny, surrounded by normal-sized creatures, but they, perspective. And you are basically at the bottom of the food chain. Craft weapons and armor, build encampments, and explore a strange new land.
Det kan vara coolt, va?
And you won't just have to survive the creatures around you, the weather itself will pose a threat, and it dynamically changes the flora and fauna around you, so things won't be quite the same all the time, which is very nice, actually. Taming these creatures is also a big thing. You can work alongside them, gaining their trust, earning allies and mounts. And gameplay, you can either go solo, PvE, or PvP. And overall, this is looking better and better. This was revealed a while ago, and it looked kind of rough at the start, but the footage they're showing off now does seem very much improved. And it is looking for an early access release. And early access is meant to start sometime in 2021. And it should last, well, basically as long as it needs to be. But hopefully between 6 months and a year. But Small Land isn't the only one going for this approach. And it's basically trying to be competition for a game that's already playable. So let's move on from Small Land into another small game. That small game is Grounded by Obsidian Entertainment. Now, Obsidian having a very good reputation. Grounded is a vast, beautiful, and dangerous place, especially when you've been shrunk to the size of an ant. It questions, can you thrive alongside the hordes of giant insects, fighting to survive the perils of the backyard? Now, this game has been in early access since the middle of 2020, and they say they want to do a full release sometime in 2021, but we're approaching the end of the year, so it might be on time. Otherwise, at this point, I would expect 2022. Game delays, it's sort of the thing through the global pandemic. Anyway, it is a reactive world that you'll be exploring, where insect life reacts to your actions. Base building is a big part to building up a shelter and your tools. It's critical to your survival, and you'll be able to craft weapons and armor, allowing you to better fight and explore. Online co-op is a big thing. A lot of people like to play this one multiplayer with up to 3 friends, but you can go alone, of course. And gameplay is centered around basically free play, or you can go through its mysterious story campaign, and it's always nice when there is actually a campaign to follow along. A lot of these survival games are just sort of, here's an open world, go do your thing. It's nice when there is a story, even if
med stories.
Det går inte att misslyckas. Det står exakt vad du ska göra på bild nummer 1, bild nummer 2, bild nummer 3.
Bit bigger, it's Last Oasis by Donkey Crew. Keep moving. Your base is on the move here because the world is dying in this nomadic survival MMO. You can build walking mobile bases to travel to new lands, join up with a clan, and fight for territory. Resources deplete fast, so you gotta scavenge, pirate, and trade your way to stay alive, and then move on. The sun itself is a major threat as it burns the lands, turning it to dust, so you have to keep moving to stay away. But go too far and there's just impenetrable ice. So basically this is not a great world to live in. But thriving is an option if you do well enough. And I know with many of these MMOs with bases, there are some concerns. So just some notes there. There's no offline raiding. So if you're concerned about that, that's answered there. Combat is melee for the most part. And of course walker combat, so your bases can be fighting each other basically. And although it is centered around a multiplayer experience, there is a solo path for you to go. And maybe you just team up for some of the larger creatures and challenges. And just as a homage to Dune, there's sandworms, because, everyone likes sandworms. Anyway, this game has been in early access since relatively early 2020. Review positivity with all the kids over the next mobile-based survival game. It's Volcanoids by Volcanoid. This is a first-person base-building survival game set in a steampunk era where humans and technology meet. Explore a volcanic island operating giant drills and enduring eruptions triggered by mechanical beings. This has been in early access on Steam since early 2019, so it's been a while, but it's got very positive reviews. 2 years in early access was the initial plan. Be playable now. The Wildside, also known as Odludzi by V-Cube Studio. Wildside is an adventure game with survival elements, looking pretty because of the Unreal Engine, and you'll be hunting, building, and crafting items to survive in the wilderness. The game takes you back to the 80s and the sub-Carpathian forests, a place surrounded by wild nature and uninhabited by humans. You lose control of your glider and crash into the wilderness, so now you have to figure out how to stay alive, build yourself a shelter, climb and explore the world around you, and deal with wolves, bears, and boars, along with everything else that lived in this forest long before you came along. Weather will wear you down, and you gotta keep in good condition as you try to make it to the end of the story, which does say it's got 2 possible endings, depending on your decisions. And it just overall kind of looks like the camper's dream, doesn't it? Well, maybe the survivalist camp. Then we go a bit more primitive in the wilds with Tribe, Primitive Builder by Polyslash. Do you think you have what it takes to live in a world without machines and the internet? I probably don't. Here you can become an architect in primitive times and help your tribe thrive and expand. Explore this old world. As the architect, the voice of the elders, your job is to explore the island in search for everything that would help your tribe survive. Collecting wood, stone, mud, leaves, whatever it takes. Using your environment to your advantage in techniques, using advanced maybe in a futuristic approach to survival games is something that's beautiful in a different way. Breakwaters by Soaring Pixels Games. Adventure through an ever-changing oceanic world that evolves with the way you interact with the water. Swim, sail, and fly to new islands with unique resources to build, craft, and survive. You'll be able to join your friends online to build a home and defend it, or to team up to defeat the massive titans to calm the waves. Though you don't have to have friends, you can do this single player as well. With a massive ocean and a dynamic open world, you'll be gathering crystals to refine them into items that displace and deform the ocean, which can reveal the rich resources below. Though things like a survival world, a compelling. There's Bitcraft by Clockwork Labs. Here's a sandbox MMORPG that encourages many different playstyles, ranging from farming, hunting, and crafting to city building and social strategy, rather than emphasizing combat alone. The game incorporates elements of subgenres such as survival games, sandbox games, RPGs, city builders, and strategy games. So basically, this is trying to be a lot. The game takes place in a single, massive, editable sandbox world for all players to interact with and to permanently change. And you can choose to work together with others, maybe even uniting cities and building empires across continents and oceans, or you could probably be a bit more of a hermit. Basically, Bitcraft kind of reminds me, like playstyle-wise, reminds me of kind of a magical sci-fi looking Salem the crafting MMO, if you know that one. And then we move on to Retreat to NN by Head West. An open world survival game set in a tropical environment. Meditate, base build, hunt, gather, explore, and craft. This does look kind of like a sci-fi realistic survival game in a more chill approach, it seems. The game is set in 3600 CE, after humanity had brought itself to the brink of extinction. A new to ensure survival genre is about stress. You know, you're about to
kanske ska hitta en annan kategori. Om du tycker om det här.
Cinematics, it's Arc 2 by Studio Wildcard.
Jävlar vilken grafik det var på det där spelet.
Ark Survival Evolved.
Jävlar vilken grafik på de andra. Ark 2, finns det Ark 1 också? Jag skulle säga det att om ni tycker det här är kul så lämna gärna en kommentar eller gilla klippet. Kostar ingenting och det ger mig lite tips vad jag ska hitta på att titta på. Och det kan ju finnas andra varianter också, typ RPG och så vidare. Jag vilken schysst grafik det var på det här.
Evolved has been a massive game in the survival genre, with many liking it and playing it for years now, so it's definitely established. And the sequel is promised, but they haven't really shown anything off besides a very fancy cinematic trailer, which is great and all, but it doesn't really tell us much. Besides that, Vin Diesel is on board apparently. Now, the expected release date for Ark 2 is 2022, so I would expect we see a lot more to this game through the coming months, because, well, it's going to be 2022 soon enough. With a game like this, maybe delayed to 2023. I suppose it depends what they show off over the coming year. Now, it can be very difficult creating a sequel to something that's already very successful. What exactly they will bring will have to be impressive, as Ark is still going strong after half a decade, I think it is. So yeah, Ark 2 is on the way, and we'll find out more later.
Söka på de här spelen sen. Det kanske redan finns några spel ute.
After the successful full release of Medieval Dynasty, the publisher Toplitz Productions wants to release another one called Wild West Dynasty, developed by Virtual Magic Games. Wild West Dynasty is a kind of survival game with cowboys, settlers, and gunslingers. Build your own ranch, provide food and wealth, and soon more settlers will join you in your quest for happiness. And of course, you know, have children, because that's the whole dynasty point. So either you'll be a successful cowboy out here in the Wild West, or you might just end up in the gallows, depending on what you do. Set in America in the 1800s. Found farms, raise cattle, dig food. Dynasty is right. People are into cowboys and whether the mechanics of the game really. And then finally, a game that isn't even a game yet.
Också spel, eller?
But I suppose might be the most hyped because we actually don't know what it is. It's Prologue by Player Unknown. Essentially, this is only a tech demo so far, which looks fantastic, but it's not really a game yet. It's supposed to be an open world survival thing, which is kind of an exploration of new technologies and gameplay. And the promise that they want to deliver on is to give players a unique and memorable experience each and every time you play. But, you know, we don't know what that actually is. We have a scene of a forest and it's raining and this forest looks amazing, and it's kind of hard to believe that this is what the game will actually look like. But if the game does actually look like this, at least we're gonna get something with some pretty nice eye candy, I suppose. But
Exakt,
you know, whether
eye
it's
candy. Vi får se om det ser ut så här man spelar, då är det
it's something to look out for, so I suppose we'll just wait until they announce what it actually is.
Kanske kommer.
All right, now for a bunch of bonus games, but if you made it this far, you probably enjoyed the video, and ring that bonus stuff. Also, you products or checking out the this is the world, but it's currently in very early development, so you're gonna have to see how this pans out over the coming years, if it can get to release at all. And then there's Damsel, which is a first-person post-apocalyptic survival game that takes several decades after survival up. It's now on Steam for few and mixed reviews, so it might turn out to be something better than it is, but right now it's just sort of okay. And that's 30 plus upcoming survival games.
Ja. Ha det bra, hörni. Tack för att ni tittade. Det var inte som jag trodde, men i alla fall någonting. Några spel hittade jag i alla fall som jag ska söka på, så det kommer komma i framtiden.